The rehearsal dinner invitation had been hand-delivered by my sister Vanessa 3 weeks ago. Heavy cream cardstock with her name and her fiancé Brandon's embossed in gold. Inside, a note in her perfect calligraphy. Cocktail attire. Please don't embarrass the family. I'd stared at that last sentence for a long time before tucking the invitation into my desk drawer. Now, standing in the grand ballroom of the Riverside Club, I watched Vanessa orchestrate her wedding rehearsal with the precision of a military campaign. Every detail was perfect. The floral arrangements, the table settings, the lighting. Everything except me, apparently. Olivia, my mother said, approaching me with that particular expression she'd perfected over the years. Loving concern mixed with deep disappointment. Did you bring something else to wear for tomorrow? I looked down at my simple black dress. It was Givenchy, but I'd removed the label years ago. This is fine, Mom. It's very... She paused, searching for a diplomatic word. Plain. Vanessa's wedding is going to be photographed extensively. Andre Moretti is doing the photography. He's shot for Vogue, Harper's Bazaar, all the major magazines. This is a prestigious event. I know who Andre Moretti is, I said quietly. Then you understand why we need everyone to look their best, she continued. Vanessa has been very clear about her aesthetic vision. Everything needs to be elegant, sophisticated, beautiful. The implication was clear, and you're not. Vanessa appeared beside us, radiant in a designer rehearsal dinner dress that probably cost more than most people's monthly rent. At 28, 3 years younger than me, she'd always been the family beauty. Tall, blonde, with the kind of classic features that photographed well and made elderly relatives coo about her breeding. I, on the other hand, had inherited our father's darker coloring and sharper features. Interesting, our grandmother had said when I was 15. Not pretty, but interesting. Mom, have you talked to her about tomorrow? Vanessa asked, not quite looking at me. I was just discussing wardrobe. Not the clothes, Vanessa interrupted. The photos. We need to discuss the photos. My stomach tightened. What about them? Vanessa finally met my eyes. Brandon and I have been very particular about the wedding aesthetic. Everything needs to be cohesive, elegant. Andre is one of the best photographers in the world, and we want to make sure the photos are perfect. Okay, I said carefully. So we've decided, she continued, glancing at my mother for support, that it would be best if you weren't in the formal family photos. The words landed like a physical blow. What? You're not pretty enough for family photos, Vanessa said, and she had the grace to look slightly uncomfortable. I don't mean that to sound harsh. It's just, Brandon's family is very photogenic and our side needs to match that. You understand, right? Emma agreed. Just stay in the background. My mother touched my arm gently as if softening the blow. You'll still be at the wedding, of course. Your family. You just won't be in the formal portraits. You can be in some of the candid shots, the group photos with extended family. Just not the main ones. I nodded and stepped aside, moving toward the edge of the rehearsal dinner setup. What could I say? That it hurt. That after 31 years of being told I wasn't pretty enough, wasn't graceful enough, wasn't quite enough in general, this felt like the final confirmation? Thank you for understanding, Vanessa said, relief evident in her voice. This is just easier for everyone. She swept away to greet arriving guests, leaving me standing alone by a towering floral arrangement. I pulled out my phone and pretended to check messages, a shield against the pitying glances from relatives who'd overheard the conversation. My phone actually did have messages. Several from my assistant Melissa, 1 from my business partner Jordan, and 3 from Andre Moretti himself. Andre, Olivia, confirm you're attending your sister's wedding tomorrow? Would love to catch up if you have time. Andre, also, thank you again for recommending me for this booking. Your agency has impeccable taste as always. Andre, just arrived at the venue for rehearsal. See you soon. I typed back quickly. Here now. Let's catch up after, lots of family around. What Andre didn't know, what almost no one here knew, was that I'd been the one to recommend him for Vanessa's wedding. Not directly, of course. When Vanessa had contacted Prestige Talent Agency 6 months ago looking for a high-end wedding photographer, my creative director had passed along several options, with Andre at the top of the list. Vanessa had been thrilled to book him. She'd spent weeks bragging to her friends about landing the Andre Moretti for her wedding. She had no idea that Prestige Talent was my agency. That I'd founded it 8 years ago and built it into one of the top modeling and creative talent agencies in New York. That I'd personally managed Andre's career for the past 4 years and considered him one of my closest professional relationships. My family thought I did something with social media for a living. They'd never asked for specifics and I'd never offered them. It had been easier that way. Easier than explaining why I'd dropped out of law school at 23. Easier than defending my decision to enter an industry they considered frivolous and degrading. Easier than watching them dismiss my success the way they'd dismissed everything else about me. The rehearsal dinner was beginning. I found my seat at table 8, far from the head table where Vanessa, Brandon, and both sets of parents sat in positions of honor. I was placed with distant cousins and Brandon's college roommate who'd been given a pity invitation. "You're Vanessa's sister?" the roommate asked, trying to make conversation. "Yes. Must be exciting having a sister getting married. Are you married?" "No." "Engaged?" "No." "Dating anyone special?" "Not currently." He seemed to run out of questions after that and turned his attention to the cousin on his other side. I picked at my salad and tried to look interested in the speeches that were beginning. Brandon's father talked about his son's accomplishments. Harvard Law, a position at a top firm, his impressive collection of marathon finishes. Vanessa's maid of honor shared cute stories about their sorority days. My father gave a brief, emotional toast about his beautiful daughter finding her perfect match. No one asked me to speak. No one mentioned me. I was there but invisible, present but irrelevant. I was checking my watch, calculating how much longer I needed to stay to avoid causing a scene, when I heard the commotion at the entrance. The famous photographer arrived. Even though this was just the rehearsal dinner, Andre had come to scout the venue and meet with Vanessa about tomorrow's shot list. He entered the ballroom with his usual confidence. Tall, impeccably dressed, silver hair swept back, exuding the kind of effortless sophistication that came from decades at the top of his field. The room noticed. Conversations paused. People turned to look. Vanessa practically leaped from her chair. "Mr. Moretti, you came. I'm so honored." But Andre wasn't looking at her. He scanned the room, his eyes sweeping over the assembled guests until they found me at table 8. His face lit up. Then walked straight to me, weaving between tables, ignoring Vanessa's attempts to intercept him. "Miss Blake." His voice carried across the ballroom. "I didn't know you'd be here." I stood up, and before I could say anything, he kissed both my cheeks in the European style we'd adopted after a shoot in Paris 3 years ago. "Andre," I said warmly. "It's good to see you. Your last cover shoot was magnificent," he said, holding both my hands and stepping back to look at me properly. "The Vogue Italia spread, cara mia, it's being talked about everywhere. The way you worked with that young photographer, the way you made him comfortable enough to take those risks. That's why you're the best in the business." The ballroom had gone completely silent. My sister's mouth fell open. "You're too kind," I said, acutely aware of every eye in the room on us. The photographer was talented. I just helped facilitate. "You do more than facilitate," Andre said, gesturing expressively. "You have the eye. You always have. That's why every photographer wants to work with your agency. Because you understand light, composition, story. You're not just a businesswoman, you're an artist." "Thank you," I said, gently trying to redirect him. "Andre, I believe my sister Vanessa wanted to discuss tomorrow's schedule." Yes, we'll discuss," he said, waving a hand. "But first you must tell me, are you shooting again yourself? I saw those photos you took last month for the Harper's campaign. Exquisite. You should be in front of the camera more, not just behind it." "Andre." "I'm serious," he insisted. "You have the face for it, the presence. I've been telling you for years you should model more seriously. Instead you hide behind the agency work." Vanessa had made her way over to us, Brandon trailing behind her. "I'm sorry," she said, her voice tight, "but there seems to be some confusion. This is my sister Olivia. She doesn't." She seemed unable to finish the sentence. Andre turned to her, clearly confused. "Your sister?" "But of course. Olivia Blake, founder and CEO of Prestige Talent Agency. Because she's not just a model." He looked between us, understanding beginning to dawn. "Wait, you didn't know?" "Know what?" Vanessa asked faintly. Andre pulled out his phone. "Prestige Talent Agency. One of the top agencies in New York. They represent models, photographers, creative directors. I've been with them for 4 years now. Olivia owns the agency that booked your wedding photographer. He showed her his phone screen, the Prestige Talent website with my professional photo prominently displayed on the About page. Olivia Blake, founder and CEO. In fact, Andre continued, oblivious to the tension radiating from my sister, Olivia personally recommended me for this booking. When your inquiry came through the agency, she called me herself. Said her sister was getting married and needed the best. She made sure I was available. The silence in the ballroom was absolute. My mother appeared beside Vanessa, staring at me like she'd never seen me before. Olivia, what is he talking about? You own a modeling agency? Yes, I said simply. But you said you did social media work. I said I worked in digital media, I corrected gently. Which is technically true. The agency has a significant digital presence. You assumed social media management. I never corrected that assumption. My father had joined the growing circle around table 8. You own an agency? A modeling agency. Prestige Talent, I confirmed. I founded it 8 years ago. We represent models, photographers, stylists, creative directors, and other talent in the fashion and advertising industries. We have offices in New York, Los Angeles, and London. Last year we generated about $47 million in revenue. Brandon was Googling frantically on his phone. Holy shit, he muttered, then seemed to remember where he was. Sorry, but Prestige Talent is huge. They represent, he scrolled, half the models that walk in Fashion Week. They're listed as one of the top 10 agencies in the industry. Top 5 actually, I said. We moved up this year. Vanessa was staring at me, her perfect makeup unable to hide the shock on her face. You own a modeling agency. A successful modeling agency. Yes. And you never told us? You never asked, I said quietly. Every time I tried to talk about my work, the conversation got changed. You weren't interested in what I did. You'd already decided it wasn't important. My mother's hand went to her chest. But we all thought you were barely making ends meet. You drive that old Honda. You live in that small apartment. I drive a Honda because it's reliable and I don't care about status symbols, I said. And I live in a small apartment because it's in Tribeca, costs $7,000 a month, and I'm barely there because I travel constantly for work. But you've never asked to see where I live or what I do. You've never asked anything beyond how's work. And you've never listened to the answer. Andre was looking increasingly uncomfortable. Perhaps I should go discuss the schedule with the wedding coordinator. No, Vanessa said, her voice sharp. Say, please. I need to understand this. He turned back to me. Why? Why would you hide this from us? I didn't hide it, I said, feeling years of hurt and frustration rising to the surface. I just stopped trying to share it. Do you remember 8 years ago when I left law school? You dropped out, my mother said as if I'd forgotten. I left, I corrected, because I'd been offered a job at a boutique modeling agency. It was entry-level minimal pay, but I loved it. I loved the creative side, the business strategy, the talent development. When I told you about it, you cried. You said I was throwing my life away. Well, a modeling agency, my father started, is a legitimate business, I interrupted. A multi-million-dollar industry that requires business acumen, negotiation skills, creative vision, and legal knowledge. All things I learned in law school. But you didn't see that. You saw me giving up a respectable career for something you considered frivolous. We just wanted what was best for you, my mother protested. No, I said firmly. You wanted what looked best to your friends. What fit your idea of success. When I started Prestige Talent 3 years later, when I told you I'd open my own agency, you patted me on the head and said, "That's nice, dear." And then you changed the subject to Vanessa's engagement. Vanessa flinched. So I stopped telling you things, I continued. I stopped trying to get you to understand or be proud of me. I built my business quietly. I made my success private. Because sharing it with you only led to dismissal or disappointment. Andre cleared his throat. If I may, Olivia is being modest. He's not just successful. He's brilliant. She has an eye for talent that's uncanny. She's discovered 3 models who are now household names. She's built Prestige from nothing into an industry powerhouse. People in fashion know her name. Respect her opinion. He looked at my family. She's someone you should be incredibly proud of. And yet, I said, looking at Vanessa, earlier today you told me I wasn't pretty enough to be in your wedding photos. Vanessa's face went white. Several gasps echoed around the ballroom. You said what? Brandon asked his fiancée, his voice dangerously quiet. I was talking about the aesthetic, Vanessa stammered. You told your sister she's not pretty enough for photographs, Andre said, and for the first time his voice had an edge to it. Your sister, who has been professionally photographed by the best photographers in the world. Who was featured in Vogue Italia last month in a spread that's being called one of the best of the year. Who has the kind of face that cameras love. Sharp, interesting, distinctive. The kind of beauty that's actually interesting, not just conventionally pretty. He pulled out his phone again and started scrolling. Here. This is from the Vogue shoot. He turned the screen to show a stunning black and white photograph of me, taken by one of Andre's protégés. In it, I looked powerful, elegant, nothing like the plain person I was supposed to be. And this one, Andre continued, swiping to another photo. From a Harper's Bazaar editorial last year. And this, British Vogue 2 years ago. Your sister isn't just beautiful. She's iconic. My mother was staring at the photos, tears beginning to stream down her face. Olivia, I had no idea. I didn't know you were a model. I supplied. I'm not really. I've done some editorial work, some campaigns, but modeling isn't my primary focus. The agency is. But I do occasionally shoot for clients, especially emerging photographers I want to support. It helps me understand what my models experience and it builds trust with photographers. My father was still processing. You're in Vogue. Multiple Vogues. And Harper's Bazaar, Elle Marie Claire, and about 20 other publications over the past 8 years, I confirmed. But again, that's secondary to running the agency. The agency that booked me for this wedding, Andre added. When Vanessa's inquiry came through, Olivia called me personally. She said, Andre, my sister is getting married. I need you to make her look absolutely perfect. Give her the best day possible. She made sure I cleared my schedule. Made sure I gave this my full attention. He looked at Vanessa. Your sister, who you just told isn't pretty enough for your photos, is the reason you have me as your photographer. She made this happen. Vanessa looked like she might be sick. Olivia, I didn't know. You didn't ask, I said. You never asked. None of you did. Brandon was still staring at his phone. Your agency represented Alessandra Montez. She walked for every major designer last fashion week. She's everywhere right now. I discovered Alessandra, I said. She was working at a coffee shop in Queens. I saw her and knew immediately she had something special. I signed her, developed her portfolio, placed her with the right photographers and designers. She walked for Prada 6 months later. Jesus Christ, Brandon muttered. My cousin Jessica, who'd been listening from a nearby table, spoke up. Wait, if you're successful, why didn't you say anything? Why let us all think you were struggling? Because she was protecting herself, Andre said before I could answer. Because she's smart. People treat you differently when they know you have money and success. They want things. They make assumptions. It's easier to keep work and family separate. Exactly, I said. And honestly, it was a test. I wanted to see if you'd respect me, value me, love me without knowing about the success. I wanted to matter as a person, not as a bank account or a connection. And we failed, my mother said, her voice breaking. We failed that test completely. You did, I agreed. You decided I was a disappointment and you never questioned that narrative. Even when I tried to share things with you, you weren't interested. You'd already made up your minds about who I was. Vanessa sank into a chair looking dazed. I told you to stay in the background. I said you'd ruin the photos. Oh my God, Olivia, I'm so sorry. Are you sorry because you hurt me? I asked quietly. Or because you found out I'm not actually the failure you thought I was? She looked up at me, tears in her eyes. Both. I'm sorry for both. You're right, I decided you were less than me. It made me feel better about myself. If you were the disappointing sister, then I was the successful one. And I never questioned it because questioning it would have meant that you'd have to actually know me, I finished. That you'd have to see me as a real person instead of a comparison point. Brandon was looking at Vanessa with an expression I couldn't quite read. You told your sister she's not pretty enough for our wedding photos. I didn't mean. You did mean it, he interrupted. Don't make it worse by pretending you didn't. You meant it. And you were wrong. Spectacularly, embarrassingly wrong. He turned to me. Olivia, I apologize. On behalf of both of us. And I'd be honored if you were in every single wedding photo tomorrow. In fact, I'd like you standing right next to Vanessa in the formal portraits. Is that acceptable? You don't have to do that, I started. I want to, he said firmly. My wife, he glanced at Vanessa. My future wife and I both want that. Right, Vanessa? Vanessa nodded, wiping her eyes. Right. Please, Olivia. I was cruel and wrong and I'm so sorry. Andre checked his watch. I should let you all talk. Family matters. But Olivia, if you have a moment later, I do want to go over tomorrow's schedule. And perhaps we can discuss that Milan shoot we talked about last week. Milan shoot? My father asked faintly. Italian Vogue wants Olivia for their September issue, Andre explained. They're doing a feature on women who are changing industries. Fashion disruptors. They want her as one of the cover subjects. Cover, my mother repeated. You're going to be on the cover of Italian Vogue. One of the covers, I corrected. They're doing multiple covers. But yes. After Andre left to find the wedding coordinator, my family stood around me in a semicircle looking shell-shocked. I don't know what to say, my father finally admitted. Olivia, I've been so wrong about you. About everything. Yes, I agreed. You have been. How do we fix this? My mother asked. How do we make this right? I don't know if you can fix 15 years of making me feel invisible, I said honestly. But you can start by actually seeing me. By asking questions and listening to the answers. By being interested in my life instead of just waiting for me to fit into your idea of what I should be. We can do that, Vanessa said quickly. We want to do that. Do you? I challenged. Or do you just want to now that you know I'm successful? Would you be apologizing if Andre hadn't shown up? If you'd found out I was exactly as unsuccessful as you thought I was? The question hung in the air. I want to say yes, Vanessa said slowly. I want to say I'd be apologizing anyway. But I don't know if that's true. I don't know if I would have realized how cruel I'd been until I was confronted with proof that I was wrong about you. It was perhaps the most honest thing she'd ever said to me. I appreciate the honesty, I said. That's a start. The rest of the rehearsal dinner was surreal. Word had spread through the room about who I was, and suddenly everyone wanted to talk to me. Distant relatives who'd barely acknowledged me before were asking about the agency, about the modeling, about my life. My father's business associates wanted to discuss industry economics. Vanessa's bridesmaids were asking if I could give them career advice. I fielded it all with the same professional grace I used at industry events, but inside I was exhausted. Around 10 p.m. I slipped out to the terrace for air. I was leaning against the railing, looking out at the venue's gardens when Vanessa found me. Can we talk? She asked quietly. Sure. She came to stand beside me. I've been thinking about what you said. About us deciding you were a disappointment and never questioning it. And you're right. We did that. I did that. And Olivia, the worst part is that I think I needed you to be less successful so I could feel more successful. Does that make sense? Unfortunately, yes, I said. You were always smarter than me, she continued. Top of your class, full scholarship to college law school at Columbia. Everyone said you were the brilliant one. And I was just the pretty one. Vanessa. No, let me finish. I built my whole identity around being the pretty sister because that's what I had. And when you left law school, when you did something that seemed unsuccessful, it was almost a relief. Finally, I could be the successful one. Finally, I had something that made me more than just the pretty sister. So you needed me to fail so you could succeed, I said. I needed you to be less so I could be more, she corrected. And I'm not proud of that. I'm ashamed of it. But it's the truth. I looked at her, really looked at her. She'd been crying, her perfect makeup ruined. Her hair was coming loose from its elegant updo. She looked younger, more vulnerable. Thank you for being honest, I said. Is there any way we can start over? She asked. Can we, I don't know, learn to be actual sisters instead of whatever we've been? I don't know, I admitted. I want to say yes. But Vanessa, you hurt me. Repeatedly. For years. That's not something that goes away with an apology. I understand. But can I try? Can I at least try to be better? I thought about it. About whether I had the energy to rebuild a relationship that had been broken for so long. About whether it was worth the risk of being hurt again. You can try, I said finally. But I need you to understand something. I'm not going to minimize my success to make you comfortable. I'm not going to hide what I've built. If we're going to have a relationship, it has to be honest. You have to be okay with me being successful. I want to be okay with it, she said. I want to be proud of you instead of threatened by you. Then we'll see how it goes, I said. The next morning I arrived at the venue 3 hours before the ceremony. I'd brought 5 outfit options, unsure what would actually be appropriate for being in the family photos after all. Andre found me in the bridal suite, where Vanessa was getting her hair and makeup done. Olivia, he said warmly. Good you're here. I wanted to discuss placement for the formal portraits. I'm thinking. Andre, I interrupted. Before we do that, I need to tell you something. I'm not actually sure I should be in these photos. Why not? Because yesterday was emotional and dramatic and everyone was caught up in the moment. But this is Vanessa's wedding day. If she really wants the aesthetic she's been planning, maybe it's better if I'm not. Olivia. Vanessa's voice came from the makeup chair. Can I talk to you? Alone. Andre discreetly disappeared. Vanessa stood up, careful not to disturb her half-finished hair. I meant what I said last night. I want you in the photos. All of them. Even if it changes your aesthetic? Especially if it changes my aesthetic, she said firmly. Because you know what I realized last night? My aesthetic was based on insecurity. On trying to look perfect because I was afraid of being seen as anything less. But you've been in vogue. You've been photographed by the best photographers in the world. And you know what Andre said that stuck with me? What? That you have the kind of beauty that's actually interesting, not just conventionally pretty. And he's right. You're interesting. You're accomplished and smart and you've built something incredible. And I want that in my wedding photos. I want photos that show my real family, not the fantasy version I was trying to create. She took my hand. Please. Be in the photos. Stand next to me. Be my sister, not my backdrop. I felt tears prick my eyes. Okay. 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 The wedding ceremony was beautiful. Brandon cried during his vows. Vanessa looked genuinely happy. And when it came time for the family photos, Andre positioned me right next to Vanessa in the first row, refusing to let me hide in the back. Beautiful, he said, checking his camera screen. Absolutely beautiful. The contrast between the two of you, it's perfect. This is going to be stunning. Later, during the reception, my mother pulled me aside. Can I say something? She asked. Of course. I've been looking at the photos Andre was showing us on his camera. The formal portraits. And Olivia, you were right, you do belong in them. More than that, you make them better. You bring something different, something real. I was wrong to ever suggest otherwise. Thank you, Mom. And I've been thinking about the past 15 years. About all the times I dismissed you or didn't ask questions or just assumed you weren't doing well. And I realize I've missed so much. I've missed knowing my own daughter. Yes, I said. You have. Can I fix that? She asked, her voice breaking. Can we start over? Can you tell me about your work, your life, everything I've missed? Maybe, I said. But Mom, you need to understand, I'm not going to explain myself or justify my choices or try to convince you that what I do is valuable. Either you're interested in my life as it is or you're not. I'm done trying to fit into your expectations. I don't want you to fit my expectations anymore, she said. I want to understand your life. Your actual life. Not the version I made up in my head. Then yes, I said. We can start over. But it's going to take time. Trust has to be rebuilt. I understand. And Olivia, I'm proud of you. I should have said that years ago, but I'm saying it now. I'm so proud of what you've built. During dinner, Andre came over to my table. I have something to show you. He pulled out his camera and showed me the screen. The formal family portrait. Look at this. The photo was stunning. Vanessa was radiant in the center, but I had to admit, I didn't look out of place. I looked like I belonged there. More than that, the contrast between us made the photo more interesting, more dynamic. My sharper features played off her softer ones. My dark coloring complemented her blonde. Together we looked like an actual family with all its differences and contrasts, rather than a magazine spread trying to project perfection. It's good, I admitted. It's better than good, Andre said. It's real. And that's always better than perfect. As the reception continued, I found myself actually enjoying it. My family was making an effort, asking questions, listening to answers, treating me like someone whose opinion mattered. Brandon's family, once they learned what I did, wanted to hear all about the fashion industry. Vanessa kept checking in, making sure I was okay, including me in conversations. It wasn't perfect. There were still awkward moments, still times when old patterns started to emerge. But there was also something new, the possibility of actual connection. Around midnight, Vanessa found me on the terrace again. "Thank you," she said, "for coming. For being in the photos. For giving me another chance." "You're welcome. I'm going to do better," she promised. "I'm going to be the sister you deserved all along." "That's a high bar," I said with a slight smile. "I know. But I want to try. And Olivia, can I ask you something?" "Sure. Will you tell me about your work? Really tell me? I want to understand what you do, what you've built, what your life is actually like. Not because you're successful or because you own an agency, but because you're my sister and I've realized I don't actually know you." So I told her. About founding Prestige Talent with $50,000 in savings and a dream. About the early days when I answered my own phones and did my own bookkeeping. About discovering my first model and the thrill of seeing her walk in Fashion Week. About expanding to Los Angeles, then London. About the challenges of managing creative personalities and business realities simultaneously. She listened, really listened, asking questions, wanting to understand. And for the first time in 15 years, I felt like I had a sister again. 2 months later, I got a package at my office. Inside was a large framed photograph, the formal family portrait from Vanessa's wedding. We all looked happy, relaxed, real. And I looked like I belonged. The note attached was in Vanessa's handwriting. "Thank you for being in the photos. Thank you for being in our family. I'm sorry it took me so long to see you. Love, V." I hung it in my office, next to the Vogue cover and the Harper's Bazaar feature and all the other markers of professional success. But somehow that wedding photo meant more. Because it represented something I'd thought I'd lost. The possibility of family. Not the perfect fantasy version of family. But the real, complicated, messy version. The version where people made mistakes and hurt each other but also apologized and tried to do better. And that, I was learning, was more valuable than any amount of success. Andre was right as usual. Real was always better than perfect. Even when it came to family. Especially when it came to family.